Hi dear friends, today we are going to learn about a new topic called as evapotranspiration. In fact, this is not a new topic. During your water resource engineering class itself, we have learned about evapotranspiration in the portions called as losses in precipitation. So there are different losses of precipitation, and one among the losses evaporation, and another loss is transpiration, and both can be combined together, and that collective loss of evaporation and transpiration is called as evapotranspiration. So if you take any ground surface, and assuming if there's some vegetation, so some amount of water will be lost from the leaves of the plants, that is to be termed as the transpiration, and some amount of water will be lost from the surface of the soil, that is termed as evaporation, and the combined effect of evaporation from the soil surface and loss of water from the surface of leaves, it's called as evapotranspiration. These things we all know, right? Now when you take at a particular case, there are some terminology that you need to understand. That's the basic thing about transpiration, what you mean by evapotranspiration. And in actual field, we use an instrument called as lysimeter to measure the evapotranspiration. So these all things are just brushing up of your old memory. That's what I'm trying to do. And now you have to know what are the factors affecting evapotranspiration, the factors that affect evapotranspiration. Now, what all factors affect evaporation and transpiration? All those factors will be affecting evapotranspiration also. So, what happens is if your see, transpiration increases when all the factors affecting evaporation increases. See, what all factors are enhancing your evaporation, those factors will be enhancing your evapotranspiration also. And also, what all factors are reducing evaporation, the same factors will be reducing evapotranspiration also. So what all, can you just name some of the evapotranspiration affecting factors? So there can be crop factor, it can be the factors related to crop, it can be factors affected to weather, it can be factors affected to soil, and other factors, and which can be called as the management factor. So these are the four broad classification: crop factor, weather factor, soil factor, and management factor. In crop factor, the type of crop, the ground cover. So you can refer some standard textbook. I'm just giving just a vague idea of how these factors are affecting evaporation. Say if you have more coverage, say for if this is your land area which you are cultivating, this is the land where you are cultivating, and out of that this much area is covered with plants. In another similar area, only this much portion is being cultivated. So what happens? The area that is available for transpiration is less here. The area that is available for it's more here, and the area that is available for transpiration is less here. So if the since the evaporation rate is less, obviously the evapotranspiration will also be less in this case, because here the area available for transpiration is less, here the area available for transpiration is more. Similarly, the weather condition. During rainy season, the evapotranspiration will be less. During summer season, the evapotranspiration will be more. Then the type of soil. Different types of soil have different types of evaporation. So all those factors, it can affect the management. What type of irrigation you are practicing? You have learned the irrigation practices also, right? And the kind of fertilizer application, the shading that you are providing. So all those factors comes under the management thing. So those are the factors affecting evapotranspiration. Now there are some basic terms that you need to understand about evapotranspiration. So there are two evapotranspiration that you have already learned in your previous semester. That is your potential evapotranspiration and your actual evapotranspiration. So just to give a memory of what you have learned, potential evapotranspiration, or PET, means we are providing maximum amount of water. There's no limit for the water. That means there is no stress in the plant. The plant is not at all being stressed. It means that we are giving unlimited quantity of water. Then the transpiration that is about to occur in the soil will be the maximum possible value, and that imaginary value, the maximum value, is called as the potential evapotranspiration. So that is the maximum potential evapotranspiration a soil can have under unlimited quantity of supply of water. Now actual evapotranspiration means, see, the entire land will not be filled with the crops, isn't it? The crops, it won't be entirely filled. So, and also we will not be providing water continuously. So in that case, the actual evapotranspiration will be less than that of the potential evapotranspiration. That is termed as the AET, or actual evapotranspiration. Now I would like to like you to understand a new concept called as reference evapotranspiration. Reference evapotranspiration represented by ETR. It is your ETR. E suffix TR. So that is your reference evapotranspiration. And the reference evapotranspiration at a particular climatic conditions, it varies according to a particular climate. And reference, so as the name suggests, there's a reference. And what is the reference here? See, you know that for different types of crops, there can be different values of evapotranspiration. So you have to take a reference crop, and your reference crop is nothing but your green grass. So if you're taking green grass, just assume that you have a patch of land, and the land is having green grass cover. It is covered with green grass of 8 to 15 centimeter tall. See, the length of the grass that you are growing there in the field of land is 8 to 15 centimeter, and it is having a full coverage. It is covering the entire area. So the entire area is being covered by this green grass. So the entire area is being covered, and there is no short of water. There is no short of water because there is no shortage of water. So you're providing continuous amount of water. At the same time, you are having grass for a height of 8 to 15 centimeter covering the entire area. Then the evapotranspiration that is about to occur is called as the reference evapotranspiration. So that is the meaning of reference evapotranspiration. It means that you have green grass for a height of 8 to 15 centimeter tall, and it is covering the entire area, and you are providing water. That means there is no shortage of water, and the grass is actively growing, and that particular evapotranspiration is called as the reference evapotranspiration. See, for what happens is, you have the evapotranspiration for green grass, and that is termed as the reference evapotranspiration, ETR. But you need to find the evapotranspiration of wheat. Wheat is not our reference crop, so you need to find the value for wheat. So the importance of this evapotranspiration, the reference evapotranspiration, is that if you need to find the evapotranspiration of wheat, what you have is you just need to multiply a constant with your reference evapotranspiration. I hope it is clear. You have your reference evapotranspiration. To find the evapotranspiration of some other plant, what you need to do is you need to multiply it with something called as Kc. That is called as the soil coefficient. Not soil coefficient, sorry. It's called as the crop coefficient. It's called as the crop coefficient. So what you get is you are getting the potential evapotranspiration. So you can say that a potential evapotranspiration of any crop can be found. Potential evapotranspiration of any crop can be found by multiplying crop coefficient with the reference evapotranspiration. See, that's the maximum value that you can have, the maximum value. And the value of this Kc, the crop coefficient, varies from 0.22. Sometimes it can go up to 1.3. The maximum value, it might go up to 1.3. Now our aim is not to find the potential evapotranspiration, but to find the actual evapotranspiration. Now what happens is the crop. So we have, see, what happens in the field is that you have soil in the field and you have crop in the field. So for different soil, the evapotranspiration rate will be different. For different crop, the evapotranspiration rate will be different. So when you consider this Kc, you have considered this the variation of crop. For different crop, you can find. But what about if the soil is different? If the soil is different, you need to consider a factor of the soil also. So when you consider that, you get the actual evapotranspiration of the crop. The actual evapotranspiration of crop is nothing but the soil coefficient Ks multiplied by potential evapotranspiration of the crop. So that means Ks multiplied, the potential evapotranspiration is this, Kc multiplied by ETL. So this Ks is called as the soil coefficient. And the value of soil coefficient varies from 0 to 1. So that's the value of your soil coefficient. And this is the way that you need to find the actual evapotranspiration of a crop. Now we need to understand the variation of the crop coefficient with the time. Crop coefficient, the Kc value changes with respect to the growth of the plant. So the factor on which this crop coefficient depends is the growth of the plant. So during the initial case, what happens is from T1 to T2, the plant is in the first phase, or it is called as the initial stage. Initial stage, what happens, we have just sown the seeds start to germinate. So during that time, the crop, the plant, the leaves and the stem has not come out of the ground. So it is, the seeds are still inside. So that's the first case. The first case, I am writing it to be the initial stage. The initial stage. So during that time, it will be having a particular value K1. It continues up to that. Then what happens? It will start to germinate from the time T2 to T3. What happens is plants will slowly start to germinate. It starts its phase, so it will be slowly increasing. So as the plant grows in size, what happens? The crop coefficient also increases. It means that it needs more and more water. It will be taking more and more water. So the evapotranspiration will also be more. So that is your second stage. And that stage is called as your development stage. And that is the development stage. Now what happens at third stage? What happens? It has become at a mid stage. That means up to its maturation, it has become matured enough. So we are talking about crops, not trees or shrubs or something like that. So this will be small plants which will be growing to keep the output. So it has reached its maturity. So that third stage is called as the mid season stage. So what happens is, since it has reached its maturity, it won't be needing more water. The requirement, the daily requirement of water will be more or less same. So that's why it has reached a value to K2. Now what happens as it has matured, it has given the product. Maybe if you're talking about wheat, the wheat grain might have come. Then what happens once you harvest it, then it will be slowly what happens? It will slowly getting deteriorated or getting ruined. It will be coming to the end of its life cycle. It will be starting to die off. So that's the final stage. So what happens? The water requirement will be again decreasing since you have had the harvest. So that stage is called as the late season stage. So this initial stage occurs when the coverage is less than 10% of ground. So the ground coverage will be less than 10%. So very small, because we are just covering the we are just putting the seeds. The seeds only cover about 10% of the total area. So that's what I meant. Then coming to the development stage, it slowly starts to increase. So what happens is it will be having a coverage of up to 70 to 80%. So during the development stage, it slowly increases. And during the mid-season stage, what it means, it means from the full ground cover to maturation. Up to maturation, you have the mid-season stage, and from the maturation to the harvest, you have the late season stage. This is how it is varying. Initially, before sprouting out, having a value K1. Then during its growth, it is having a value K2, continuing. Then once you take the harvest, what happens is it slowly reduces, so it comes back and it will be having a value K3. So this is how your crop coefficient is varying. So the crop coefficient depends upon the stage of growth. So this is also important. Now coming to talking about some other concept called as consumptive use. See, so you might be getting bored because all these terms you have already seen in your last semester. Consumptive use. So basically, the meaning of consumptive use is that the amount of water that a plant requires for its metabolic activities. So whatever, see, the plant needs it for respiration, transpiration, photosynthesis, whatever it is. For all the metabolic activities, the plant needs some amount of water, including the water that is directly evaporated from the soil and plant surface. See, if you take the case of any location, some plants will be there. So some amount of water will be lost from the surface of soil, some amount from the surface of plants, and also some amount of water will be required for the metabolic activities of the plant, and that whole thing together is called as the consumptive use. That is called as the consumptive use. Now if you compare consumptive use and your evapotranspiration, the difference between that will be less than 1%. The difference of consumptive use and your evapotranspiration will be less than 1%. For that reason, you can say that your consumptive use and evapotranspiration are mathematically equal. Though those two are two different conceptual things. So evapotranspiration means the total effect of evaporation and transpiration. Consumptive use means the total amount of water that is required for the metabolic activities of the plant. So though both are different in its aspects of concept, the mathematical value will be more or less same. So that's why we are mathematically equating consumptive use and evapotranspiration. The next topic is determination of evapotranspiration. The evapotranspiration can be determined by different methods. The first is the direct method, and second one is indirect or indirect method. We have got direct method and indirect method. As the name suggests, direct method means you have to go and measure it. So what you do is you will be isolating a portion of the farmland. Say for example, this is the portion where your crops have been grown. So you'll be isolating some portion. So this much portion is used for the actual cultivation, and this much remaining portion of the farmland will be isolated to conduct some experiments. You'll be using the lysimeter. So I have already told you that the instrument that is used to measure evapotranspiration is lysimeter. So you'll be incorporating lysimeter in this portion, and you'll be taking small patches of cultivated crops to learn the actual evapotranspiration, and such a method is called as a direct method. So where you isolate a portion of crop from its surroundings and determining the evapotranspiration by the actual measurement using lysimeter, and that's the actual method of direct method. Now coming to indirect method, as the name suggests, you have to depend upon some other things. When you are measuring a parameter from the actual physical measurement, it is a direct method. So here we are directly measuring the evaporation and transpiration. But here what we are doing, we are indirectly finding it. Means that we are not at all finding evaporation and transpiration, but the other factors, evaporation will be depending on some other factors, and transpiration also may be depending on some other factors. So we will be measuring those factors which is affecting evaporation and transpiration. So means, so evaporation is there, transpiration is there. Evaporation will be affected by some other methods, and transpiration also will be affected by some other factors. So you will be finding the values of this other factors. You are not at all measuring this evaporation and transpiration directly. You are measuring these factors which are affecting transpiration or evaporation, and that's the indirect measurement of evapotranspiration. Then that's one method of indirect method. That's what we mean. So the first method of indirect method is that we will be depending upon the crop and climate data. Crop and climate. Say for example, if crop is there, the crop is particular crop is there, crop wheat and crop rice or paddy, both are having different nature, so their transpiration rate will be different. So that's indirect method. So first, if you take wheat, and if you take rice, the evaporation transpiration rate is quite different. So that is indirect method. And the climatic data, say for example the wind velocity is less, in some other location the wind velocity is high. So if wind velocity is high, the evaporation rate is also expected to be high. So we are correlating some other factors. That's how the indirect method works. And coming to the next type of indirect method, we can use theoretical or empirical equations. Theoretical or empirical formulas or equations. Out of this, the most important two empirical equations are Penman's method and Blaney-Criddle method. Blaney-Criddle method. So this is the two most widely used methods. Out of this, Penman's method is the most widely used method. Blaney-Criddle method is also quite popular among some scientists. So these two methods are used as an indirect method, and also these are some equations, empirical equations to find evapotranspiration indirectly. So we'll be learning about these two methods one by one in the coming videos.